Hello guys, my name is Desmond and I welcome you to my YouTube channel. So guys, I hope you're able to see on my screen. So for today's lesson, we'll be looking at a chapter called Sequence and Series. So we'll be doing question 3 of this question paper of November of the year 2017. So remember guys, for the purpose of today's lesson is just to run a test and also to just warm you up for the upcoming questions. So I've just selected one of the easiest questions in relation to this chapter. So it won't be that much complicated and I assume you'll enjoy this lesson. So ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would encourage you to just quickly smash that subscribe button, and again, if need be, you can just click on the bell notification so that you're notified of our future uploads. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, question 3, as you can see, 3.1, we are given a statement which says, given the finite linear pattern, there is the pattern is 12, 17, 22, up to 172. Okay, so guys, very much important. I always indicate to you that there's an instruction in the statements, and again, a useful information is found in the statement. When you read the questions, they're just going to guide you in terms of how to provide the answer, but most of the information will be based on the given statement. If we had a diagram, then you obviously know that you answer the questions where the information is based on the given statement and the diagram. But in this case, it's mathematics. We just have the given statement, as you can see on this chapter. So we have read the statement. I think we can now start with the first question. Okay, so let me just quickly write that information. So we'll be doing question number 3. So we are given the finite linear pattern, which is 12, 17, 22, 172. Okay, so this is what we're given, guys. Most importantly, before I even start with the questions, this is what I normally do, and this is what I used to do when I was in grade 10. So the first thing, before I even start with the questions, I try to find out the type of that given pattern. Okay, even though for this question, you can see, guys, they've mentioned that given the finite linear pattern. Okay, so this is a good indication that it's not one of those complicated patterns. Remember, you can have a geometric sequence, you can have a quadratic sequence, you can also have an arithmetic sequence. Okay, so this is most likely to be arithmetic sequence. So I'm just giving you this task to find out if linear pattern and arithmetic pattern is the same pattern. Okay, you can just find out for me. As soon as you find out, if you already know, you can just comment to indicate that linear pattern and arithmetic pattern is the same type of sequence. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, assuming that we're not told that this is a linear pattern, as I've indicated, what I do before I even start with the questions, I try to find out that to find out what is the type of that sequence. Okay, and most importantly, guys, for you to be able to know if this type of pattern it's an arithmetic pattern, it's in most cases where you are given the first 3 terms. Okay, you will notice shortly why you'll be given the first 3 terms. So let's try to find the difference of this pattern and see if we've got the common difference. Okay, so 17 minus 12, even if you know it by heart, at all times I rely on a calculator. It's 5. Okay, so that means we've got 5. And again, this calculator, I don't know what's wrong with it, but I just know that when a calculator gives you a problem, you can just smash it, there you go. So 22 minus 17, it's equals to 5. Okay, so guys, can you see we've got the first common difference? Okay, so now that we've got the first common difference, it means this is an arithmetic sequence. Okay, so it could be a confirmation that when you talk of a linear pattern, we talk about arithmetic sequence. Okay, so now because we're dealing with arithmetic sequence, we know we are most likely to use this formula. Tn is equals to A plus into n minus 1 close D. Okay, so you might find that for us to be able to tackle questions related to this pattern, from time to time, we might refer to that formula. Okay, so based on what the question wants, we'll then be able to use that formula to answer the questions. Okay, so remember guys, the general formula for determining the first difference, it's term 2 minus term 1. Okay, so let me just write 2 there and write term 1 there. Okay, or otherwise you can just say a term, what is it? You can even find it using term 3 minus term 2. Okay, so it's just a, the term, and then you subtract the previous term. Okay, you subtract the previous term from the next term. Not sure if it makes sense, guys, but it's that easy. It's not that much complicated. If you are in grade 10, 11, and 12, you already know this information. Okay, so I think before I start with the questions, guys, let me just quickly try to explain this formula. I won't go into detail, but I'll just indicate in the general stuff. So we've got Tn, which is equals to A plus into n minus 1, and then D. Remember, this is multiplied by D, so you multiply the whole of this by D. Okay, so we've got the nth term. This is what we call the nth term. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's say for instance they want you to tell us what is the fourth term. Okay, so if a question says the nth term, it refers to that particular term of the sequence. In this case, let's say they want you to calculate the fourth term. Okay, so it's more like the question wants you to calculate the fourth term, right? Of which it's normally written on this formula as term 4. As term 4, which is equals to the whole of this. Okay, so it's very, very much important, guys, that you realize how the questions are asked. Okay, if the question says the nth term, that means they want you to write the general formula of the given pattern. Okay, but now if they specify to say the fourth term, they want you to tell them what is the term there. Okay, because obviously we've got term 1, term 2, term 3, then you should be able to use the formula to calculate the fourth term, right? So we can still make use of the first difference to know what is the fourth term. But in some instances, you might find that they want you to calculate maybe the 50th term. Okay, so you can still do it manually by just adding. Obviously, you know, for you to get 17 from 12, you add it by 5. So it's more like 12 plus 5, it gives you 17. And then 17 plus 5, it gives you a 22. So now 22 plus 5, it should give you a term number 4. If you want term number 5, you just add by 5, okay? Because 5 is the common difference throughout the entire sequence, okay? So now, if you want to find the 6th term, you just add this term. Obviously, here you're going to get the 4th term. Let's see, it could be 27. I think 22 plus 5, it should be 27, which is the 4th term. For you to get term number 5, you just add by 5, you get term number 5. Term 6, add by 5. So you continue by adding by 5 up until you get to term number 50. So for you to keep on adding by 5, it will take you forever, guys. So we use a shortcut to get to the 50th term. What is the shortcut? This is the shortcut, okay? So this is the formula that you use in order to get to any term of this sequence. For example, guys, they might also request you to calculate the 97th term, okay? So can you imagine how long it will take you to keep on adding by 5, by 5, by 5, by 5 up until you get to 197? If this question is, this question paper, the whole of this question paper, if it's 1.5 hours, then it might take you up to 15 to 30 minutes for you to keep on adding by 5 until you know what is the number for the 197th term. So instead of you having to add by 5, we use this formula. That's why at all times you're encouraged to use this formula. And again, marks are allocated based on the usage of this formula. If you keep on adding, you might find just a mark for your final answer and you miss some marks in between, okay? But this is the shortcut that you must always use, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, that's what I've been trying to explain with regards to nth term, okay? So that means in conclusion, Tn refers to the nth term, to the number of the term on that sequence, not necessarily that sequence, but any given sequence. Again, we've got A. Ladies and gentlemen, A is very, very much simple and straightforward. You know, on your alphabets, you've got the first letter as A. So now that you've got A as the first letter of your alphabets, when it comes to sequences, the first number of the sequence or the pattern is referred to as A, okay? So A is the first term, A is the first term of the given sequence, okay? Very, very much important, guys. And again, we can refer to this A as T1. Very, very much important, guys. You've got A, which is the first term of the sequence or the first term of the pattern. And again, this A, we can refer to it as term 1. Okay, so that means this is T2, this is T3, this is T4. Okay, but because we had those 3 dots, not sure if you still remember, guys, we had these 3 dots. It means we've got some numbers in between up until 127, okay? So those numbers in between, because of we've got some numbers in between, that's why we cannot tell what term it's 172, okay? So we can make use of this formula to know what term of this pattern it's 172. Guys, this chapter, especially when it comes to the nth term and these numbers, it could be confusing. I know when I tried to study this chapter by my own, I had a lot of confusion. But after some time, after I've done a lot of examples in the textbooks, I then noticed the difference and the similarities. Then, when I tried to solve the previous question papers, that's when I learned how the questions are asked in relation to this chapter. And again, I've learned how the questions differentiated what I thought was similar in terms of the N and the TN. Okay, so guys, when it comes to A and D, straightforward. You might be confused by TN and N. Okay, but guys, I'm hoping before the end of this lesson, actually before we start with the first question, you should be able to notice the difference between TN and N. If you're not confused by these two, consider yourself very much lucky. But for the purpose of accommodating everyone, I'll just assume that 1 in 10 learners get confused, so that we make sure that even that one learner is on the same page as everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've already explained what A refers to. So now let's talk about N. Okay, so N, guys, is the number on that pattern. For example, term number 3. Term, where can I, okay, let me just write it there. Term number 3 on that pattern, it's equals to 22. Okay, so that means term number 3 is what we refer to as TN. Okay, and then this term number 3 is equals to N, which is 22. Okay, I'm not sure if this makes sense, guys, but I hope it does. Okay, so let's just try something else. Let's say, for example, term number 2 on that pattern, it's equals to 17. Okay, so in short, we are saying T2, which is term number 2 of that pattern, it's equals to N, which is 17. Okay, so when we say the nth term, which is Tn, okay, we want to know what is the number for that nth term. For example, when we talk of term number 2, we want to know what is that number for term number 2. Okay, so term number 2, it's equals to 17. Okay, so guys, very, very much important. Very, very much important that you understand this part. Okay, and remember, guys, a pattern doesn't necessarily mean that it will always be positive numbers. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that at all times it will be numbers. For example, you can have 2x, you can have 4x, you can have a 9x. Okay, I'm just giving you an example. You can find this, or you can be given this as a sequence or a pattern. Okay, assuming that also this one that I've given you as an example was a linear pattern, you know that the first two terms will give you the difference, and obviously the third and the second term will give you the difference. And because it was specified that this was a linear pattern or an arithmetic sequence, then you know you've got what we call the first common difference. I used to call it the first CD. So the first CD, according to me, meant the first common difference, which refers to arithmetic sequence or linear pattern. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, because you've got the first CD, it means this CD and that CD is the same. Okay, that difference and that difference is the same, just like you've seen on this given pattern that this difference and that difference is the same. So that means they're equal. Okay, Very, very much important, guys. So now, when they say, what is T3 of this given pattern as an example, then you obviously know that it means term number 3, it should be 9x. Okay, so that means 9x is n, and then T3 is the nth term, which is term number 3. Very, very much important, guys. Only if you can understand this part, then you're almost there. So remember, guys, on the formula we've got D. I've already explained what is D. D is just the difference, okay, of the second term minus the first term, okay, or the term minus the previous term. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can now get ready to start with the questions. I can tell you now, guys, you should be ready to answer these questions. And again, after this lesson, you will notice how easy this chapter is. Regardless of whether you're dealing with a geometric sequence or a quadratic sequence, it's not that much complicated. So now, question number 3, let's say 3.1, we're given a finite linear pattern, which is 12, 17, 22, then we've got 172. Okay, and I've just indicated that this is always my starting point. Then we've noticed that was 5, 5, and we had, this is our first D. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I think we can now start with our first question. And I assume you're able to see the questions on my screen. If